Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hood, the amazing, spectacular, the terrific, the great one, the people's champion, host the Hood, and welcome back to the Baseball Hood. Hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. As you know, the Baltimore Orioles are a disaster right now. They're dead last in the American League East, and this is a team that was expected to go to the World Series the last few years with their very young positional talent, and they have not been able to do that. And now the heat is starting to go up down there in Baltimore with the manager, and in particular the general manager. The general manager should be fired, in my opinion, because he has had this great opportunity to build a championship team, and he's faltered. He's been able to bring in young talent, but he's been able to not take it to the next step. And people are starting to take notice of it. This is from CBS Sports. Schneider's soapbox. Mike Elias wanted to turn the Orioles into the Astros, but he can't get out of the rebuild. The Orioles had one of the most awful stretches in Major League Baseball, and the promise was it would pay off. That's right, they were bad. They lost 100 games 3 years in a row. Some of the worst stuff you can possibly imagine happened to them. 110 losses, 115 losses. Terrible. Welcome to Schneider's soapbox. Here I punt out. I don't care about this. Entering Tuesday, the Orioles are 13-20. 13-20. Last in the American League East. The only teams in baseball that are definitely worse than the Orioles are the White Sox and Rockies. Some might want to argue that the Pirates, or Marlins, or Angels are worse, but we all agree that it's a toss-up and they're all on the same tier. It wasn't supposed to be like this, not in 2025. I remember when Mike Elias took over as the general manager, decided to try and emulate what happened with the Houston Astros, where he cut his teeth as a higher-up executive under Jeff Luhnow. The Astros have been one of the best organizations in baseball in terms of consistent winning for the past decade. It worked. Did it work with the Orioles? We're still in the process of finding out, but we can't ignore the extreme rebuild. Again, it was the same formula the Astros used, basically. Bottom out and lose your ass off for years. Hope the fans will come back when you start winning again. The Orioles in 2018 lost a franchise record 115 games. In 2019, they lost 108. In 2021, they lost 110. Would mention, and I think this is the number, 11 of the last 20 years that the Orioles have been terrible. Have lost 90 games plus 11 of the last 20 years prior to this year. Those are the three highest loss totals in the history of the Baltimore Orioles. St. Louis Browns lost 111 once, and that is technically the same franchise, but the Orioles had never lost more than 107 before this radical rebuild, during which they lost more than 107 in 3 straight full seasons. Elias didn't take over until after the 2018 season, but he purposely punted 3 more years, and the fans went through 2018. This is a proud franchise with a great fan base. There were once a powerhouse from 1964 to 83. The Orioles won at least 90 games 16 times in 19 full seasons. They had a losing record just once in that span. Wow. They won at least 100 games 5 times, making 8 ALCS and 6 World Series, and winning the World Series 3 times. They haven't won a World Series since 1983. Things took a downward turn after that. Remember that famous Sports Illustrated cover with Bill Rip? No, that's stupid. Yeah, that team actually started 0 for 21 and still ended up with a better record with the 2018, 2019, 2020. That's the 1988 Orioles. To put that fan base through that type of rebuild, the end result better be fantastic. The Orioles did post pretty great farm systems and rankings. They churned out some major position players. Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson are stars, and there's a chance others will join that conversation soon. The group, however, is 0-5 in the playoffs. The state of the pitching staff right now, a 5.43 ERA, with not much hope of a drastic turnaround, suggests that record will be the same heading into the offseason. Actively punting seasons to the extent the Orioles did doesn't sit right with me. You're still supposed to be an entertaining product for your audience and to essentially tell fans, yeah, we're trying to lose on purpose for almost 5 years. Just feel like it's in bad faith to me. There are other ways to build a winner. Don't cry about the market size, either when teams like the Rays and Brewers exist. Look at the Cardinals. They never chose to gut the entire team and bottom out, even when they aren't contending. If you're going to go that route, though, you better bounce back like the way the Astros did. They've won 2 championships and played in 4 World Series in 6 years. it's understandable that Elias would attempt to recreate that kind of success with a similar formula. But here's the thing, they made the trade for Corbin Burnes. Okay? They made a trade for Corbin Burnes, but they didn't sign him. They traded young talent for him and they didn't sign him. What's different about the Astros brought in a lot of players, a lot of pitching, to help their position players win a World Series, like Justin Verlander, and they developed guys. I haven't heard anything about them developing any kind of pitching lab down there in Baltimore. And this is a franchise that is known for pitching. Now, they made a trade last year for Trevor Rogers, who at the time was with the Marlins. There was a rumor that the New York Mets were looking to get him. I said, don't get this guy. He's a disaster. And he was. He was so bad for the Rangers, this is Rogers. So bad for the Orioles that they sent him to the minor leagues in September. The moves that they made at the deadline last year was a total disaster. And they have zero talent. Other than Grayson Rodriguez, they have zero talent, folks. Zero talent. Zero talent in terms of pitching in their minor leagues. That falls on the general manager not understanding. You can't keep bringing in players that are position players. You need some young talent in terms of in your minor leagues and pitching in particular. Then he was so smart. He thought that it would be a great idea. Let's bring in Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton is 97 years old. 41. Exactly. He's hurt. Kyle Gibson, 37 years old, has not pitched well. Tomoyuki Sugano, who they brought in from Japan, he's in his mid to late 30s. Not a great situation, and he did not, and I guess he's hurt too. And they mentioned in this article a couple of things. Kley Holmes, the Mets signed him to a 3-year, $38 million contract. He's pitching great for the Mets. He's pitching great. He might make the All-Star team. He's pitched that well. They mentioned Matthew Boyd. He's pitched well for the Cubs. They mentioned Nick Pivetta. Pitched real well for the Padres. There were plenty of moves that they could have made that would have helped this team. And I mentioned this in the last 2 years. When it comes to the Orioles, they've done nothing to help the young players overcome some of the stuff in the postseason. They should have made moves like bringing in a Justin Turner. Would have been great for that young infield, a veteran player who's a mentor type. Or you could have brought in the same person like Tommy Pham that helped them, push them harder to be better than they are. They did not make the kind of moves you would think that they should make. They brought in Tyler O'Neill, whatever. But they're 13 and 20, so the proof's in the pudding there. Now, they let Anthony Santander leave and go to Toronto, and he's been a disaster up there. But that's another story, the Blue Jays. But Baltimore, and I've been on their case a lot, and I talked about them a lot on this channel because they fascinate me in a lot of ways. Because they're so, they're close to New York, but they're far away from New York, So you sort of do have an interest in what they do down there. They have a great ballpark. They have a great franchise. They finally got rid of the Angelos family. They have an owner this new owner who they brought in last year, who bought the team. He says he's willing to spend money. They didn't spend any money. This is a team, in my opinion, needs a veteran superstar on it. And they need role players that know how to win. Guys, just an example, like I said, Tommy Pham, Justin Turner. Veteran players that can help this team. And obviously, this team needs pitching. And they've got to do a better job of scouting pitching and start to look at creating themselves a pitching lab. I don't know if they have a pitching lab. A lot of the Astros had that. The New York Mets had that. The Padres always seem to do a great job at their pitching. And it's a shame that the Baltimore Orioles, that are known for such great pitching in their history, can't develop any pitching in their farm system. The number one pick doesn't have to be a pitcher and be a great pitcher. Great pitchers come from anywhere, anytime. But that's a failure on the general manager. Now, I don't know the exact situation going on with the manager there, but to me, this is more of a upper management, front office problem than it is a on-the-field issue. It's just not enough talent on the mound for this team to contend. That's my opinion from what I see from far away. And they should not be 13-20. It should be reversed. If they had any pitching, they let Corbin Burnes leave in the middle of the night to go to the Diamondbacks. Why'd you make the trade? And then they do nothing at the trade deadline last year when they needed extra help in terms of position players, in terms of pitching. He did nothing. Elias did nothing. This is a mess, and it's not going to get any better. Unless they fire this general manager, they bring in somebody from outside the organization that knows how to bring in good pitching, knows how to develop pitching. They're not going to succeed. As simple as that. Well, let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Head 2, and I'll see you later.